Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to flip our sketchbook to a nice clean page, and we're going to turn it sideways, and we're going to practice making some different forms. So, when we're making forms in a livable space, for example, you know, as I sit in my studio here at home, I look around and I see all kinds of forms. I see my printer that's in front of me that's kind of like a rectangular prism. I have a glass of water that's a cylinder. I also see some organic forms. I have this really cool Apple Post-it note guy that's there, right? So that's a different kind of form. So if I try to draw objects in a believable space, there's a couple different things that we need to do to create the illusion of the space that we're within. And Filippo Brunelleschi, he really figured out, you know, this method of drawing that always creates the illusion of three-dimensional space on a two-dimensional surface, like this piece of paper is 2D, right? It's flat, it doesn't have depth, we can only see two sides. So it's not like, you know, our spaces that we live in that are three-dimensional and we can see the tops, the bottoms, the sides of the objects that are within the space. So what we're going to do to begin is we're going to create a horizon line. So any livable space has this imaginary line that is our eye level. It's also, if we were standing outside, where the earth meets the sky. Okay, so this is our horizon line. Also divides the space into the back. And then below the horizon line, anything that's kind of in this middle area here. It's not quite down towards the bottom edge of our paper. It's not quite up towards, you know, the horizon line, but anywhere in the middle here, we call that, I'm just going to make a little dotted line here, we call that the middle ground. And these are all the different planes of a picture, right? The different areas of the picture. And then last but not least, the things that are closest to us, we call the foreground. Now, to create the illusion of space, I need to place objects in different areas of it. I also need to make sure that those objects get smaller as they get closer to my middle ground and my background. And I also can create the illusion of space by overlapping them. So what I'd like you guys to do is think of a few shapes. So for example, I'll do a cube down here. Right, to start with a cube, make a square, right? Anytime we're making a form, start off with the shape. And then what we're gonna do is I'm gonna make a different shape in the middle ground. Just so now that I have my 5 forms, I'm going to go ahead and from the edges of them, I'm going to start drawing lines back. Now, look at the shape. If the shape is to the right of your vanishing point, you're going to see the left of it. Also, too, if the shape is below the horizon line, right, it's on the ground, you're going to see the top part of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw some lines back towards the vanishing point. And now if we draw these lightly, I'm drawing dark so you guys can see it, but draw them lightly so that you can erase those orthogonal lines that you don't need. Okay, just back like that. Alright, so now I look like I got this diamond kind of going back into space. I'm going to look between the diagonal lines that are going back towards my vanishing point. I have a horizontal line here. I'm looking just between these two orthogonal lines. I have a horizontal line here. I'm going to copy that, line up your ruler with it, slide it back as far as you wish, okay, and make that horizontal line. Then I'm going to connect, right? Remember these two, this edge is connected. So I'm then going to go and look between these two orthogonal lines and draw the back edge of my cube. Okay, and it should look something like that. Then erase the rest of your cube. Now, I just realized I didn't do any overlapping. So I'm going to take this little guy and I'm going to move him off to the side, right? And overlapping creates also the illusion of depth, because then I can see what things are closest to me. For example, this cube is closest to me, and this is farthest away. Yep. Make sure you're going back towards that farthest edge. You can see a little bit of that one. Okay. Then look between the lines. You're always looking between two, and look at what's between those two endpoints there. So there's this kind of curve that's here. I'm gonna bump that out. Then this part curves and goes down. So I'm following with my eye like I do with my contour drawing. I'm gonna bring this down a little bit. And then this edge kind of goes off, so I'm gonna let that actually peek behind it. And then I'm gonna erase the rest of my lines. Okay, once you have all of your forms drawn in, the next thing we need to determine is where our light source is. Okay, so pick a light source somewhere. I'm just gonna kind of temporarily put like a little sun. You could put a flashlight, whatever you need. And if this were an actual landscape, imagine, you know, there's mountains. By the way, if you draw mountains in a landscape, you know, they normally end at the bottom of the horizon line. Okay, so if this was a real landscape, you would only have one light source. It would be the sun, and it would be somewhere in the sky, whether it's morning, you know, it's in the east, it's in the west, it's at noon, and depending on where your light source is, or depending where the sun is in the sky, it's gonna create different shadows on your objects. Okay, so my sun, if I'm looking at this pyramid that's up in the sky here, what I'm going to do is look to see where the sun would be hitting it, and would be hitting it here on the left. So that means that this front edge is probably going to be a little bit lighter. Okay, so I'm going to shade that in. And you could do cross hatching. Cross hatching is when you overlap lines, when you crisscross them. And or you can do blending, and blending is when you take your finger or a stump and you kind of smudge side to side. Just be careful, because sometimes smudging or blending tends to be a little messy. Okay, so I only have two sides of this pyramid, and the reason I want to talk to you guys a little bit, like, how come we can see three sides of this but we can only see two sides of the pyramid? Well, it depends on where forms are in relationship to the vanishing point. This pyramid is very, very close, almost on top of the vanishing point, where this cube, there's quite a bit of distance. It's pretty far off to the right. So when you have objects that are either far to the right and also too really low or far away from the vanishing point, you tend to see three sides. If you have a form that's like directly above or below, you tend to only see two sides of the object. Okay, so I'm going to keep on going. Now, we're going to talk about casted shadows. So these objects are up in the sky. You may see a little bit of a casted shadow, you know, maybe underneath, a little bit off to the right. Right, and the casted shadow is always going to be either the side that's farthest away from the sun. So for example, this side you know, that's hovering over the ground, right? That's the what's going to be casted. If it's something that's on the ground already, like this, you know, you're going to have more of, you know, a shape that looks like the side. So if I can imagine, what would the side look like? And shadows lay flat, so make those horizontal if they're on the ground. And as this curves up, it's kind of creating an awning. This might be a little bit darker. So look at how things are bending. Normally I have a still life that I have you guys actually draw,